Welcome to a Gypsy Kiss. It's Friday, Fennspiration, and I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Younis. Stick with us a couple of seconds. We're going to talk about why we're not looking for a trove, I think. Let me do some pre-housekeeping here. That's good. That needs to change that.
Okay, so while Toby's ignoring all the audience, I'll say hello. Hello, everybody. Say hello to those people in the room. Oscar Rodriguez, Tony Driver, Tarman Oakey, that's a new name. We have Wayne Ross, Evan Penn, Lydia D is here, AJ Rainville, Missouri Dave, Hooley, Terry McKernan, and William and Brian Eagle. Brian Eagle, you've been here a lot this week. Are you on vacation?
How can you be on vacation in Austin? Austin is like a big vacation.
Okay.
Austin takes ass.
Housekeeping, you want towel?
Because, of course, everybody needs towels. Why am I popping? Hold on. I'm popping. So first of all, before you leave today, make sure you like this video. YouTube likes it when you like our videos. Share this video with your family, friends, neighbors, business associates, and social networks so that we can
grow
the
our channel.
And then finally, if you're not already a subscriber, this would be the ideal time to subscribe. And when that notification bell pops up, click on the notification bell. And that way, anytime we start a live stream, notification bell, sorry. I moved along pretty quick there. Or we schedule a live stream, you will be immediately informed and in the know. And there's nothing better than being in the know. So today we want to talk about trove. And the reason I wanted to talk about trove is that trove is a word rarely used by Fenn.
That's true. If you go to Terry Scant and look it up, you won't see him using the word in any of those interviews that they've got up there.
Actually, there is one.
He uses it? Or somebody else does?
Nope, he uses it.
Oh, okay.
And I have a video of it.
Okay.
So in The Thrill of the Chase, the word trove is used once. And it's only used once because it's in the poem and no other place in the book. Outside of that, to the best of my knowledge, he has used the word twice. Once at Moby Dickens, and he only used it at Moby Dickens because he recited the poem. Other than that, it's not mentioned in anything until the recent Playboy interview in which he used the word again. So I wanted to go back to some research that we did a while back and pay it forward, since we were talking about it. So you can see it's used once in the poem. We've always felt like the first, fifth, and sixth stanzas were the legalese that was required in the poem. The first stanza establishes ownership. The fifth stanza establishes what Fenn thought he was leaving behind, so for legal purposes. And then the last stanza was the transfer of title. So now we have a man who owns something, who hid something, and who transfers the title to that something to the person that finds it, all right? So that's what it's all about, but that's where trove is used. What interested me was how trove is defined. And I'm gonna pop up a screen here. Hang on just a sec. And this is pretty much the standard dictionary definition of trove. Could you read that over on your side? I can't read that far.
Trove, noun, a collection of valuable items discovered or found. A treasure trove.
Okay. And I want to make the distinction between that definition, which is in the dictionary, and the legal definition, how the law sees it, because it is defined in not only case law, but in written law, black letter law, as to how it's defined, and it's slightly different from that. It's much more specific than the generalized dictionary definition. So a couple of years ago, I did some research on trove, and I found a gentleman whose name is John M. Kleberg. He's an attorney, and he specializes in treasure law, both land and sea treasure law. He's written several papers, and I found one of his papers. I'm going to screenshot that so you can see it. So this is one of his papers, and it's entitled "The Law and Practice Regarding Coin Finds." And the subtitle is Treasure Trove Law in the United States, and it's by John M. Kleberg. So I have put a link to that. It's a PDF file. I've put a link to that file in the description box below. So if you want to take a look at it, it's for about 14 pages long. It's actually part of a text that he had already written on treasure law in the United States. It included the C's, et cetera, et cetera. And then, and it has, like I said, about 14 pages. And in those 14 pages, he mentions the word trove 82 times. He uses the word trove 82 times, both in the main text and in the citations. So this is very much about the concept of trove. And as I said, if you want to read that, you can use the link in the description box below to get there. That'll get you the trove. You can download the PDF file. So a couple of years ago, after I found this research, I wrote Mr. Kleberg and asked him if I could call him. He, at the time, was in New York City. His phone number is available because you can find his curriculum vitae. And I asked him if I could call him about this particular paper. And he said yes. And so we talked a little while, and I was asking him questions related to the paper. And then he said, finally, what is this in the context of? And I said, well, it's in the context of the Fenn, Forrest Fenn, the treasure that, I don't remember my exact words, but I made it clear that the context was the treasure that Forrest Fenn had hidden. And there was a pause, a very pregnant pause, and all of a sudden he launched into what I would call a diatribe about why Forrest Fenn was a scoundrel. And he didn't stop until he had listed all the reasons that it was impossible for Fenn to have hidden a treasure of that value. It said, and expect that people were going to find it, and that Fenn was a fraud. He literally went off his thing. And then he slammed the phone down. Because back then we were still slamming. No, it wasn't that long ago. But he hung up. And at the time, I was kind of disturbed by it because this guy is one of the, if you look up John Kleberg and treasure law, you find him all over the map because he's done a lot of work in that area and he's represented a lot of people. And so I was rather, I don't know whether it was disappointed or discouraged that I had this conversation with him. I guess I was discouraged because I knew at that point I was never going to get him on our show, and have that conversation, even if it was the kind of conversation that he wanted to have versus the kind of conversation that I wanted to have with him. So I tried to contact him a couple of times since then, and he's a little bit like Forrest. He doesn't answer my emails either. But I wanted to go back to this thing. So he wrote the paper, this paper that I'm talking about, The Law and Practice Regarding Coin Finds. And he states that in the paper, this article will discuss the treatment of coin and money hoards found on lands in the United States, which is dealt with under United States law of treasure trove and the related United States laws regarding lost and found property. Now, that's the point I wanted to make earlier. He very clearly says that there is U.S. law related to treasure trove and lost and found property. And the point I wanted to make is the definitions that are used in the law are different from the definition that we saw in that the dictionary definition just a few minutes ago, and there is case law associated with it. And I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on YouTube, but one of the important things about case law is that if you have a case that deals with a particular topic, and in this case, let's say the definition of treasure trove, what your attorney has to do is bring case law, cases that have been settled using these laws prior to this time, and cite them as in support of what you're trying to promote or prove. And I'm sure Joel can tell us much more about that, and much better and much more credibly than I can. But that's kind of the simple man's definition of it. So I'm just going to cite a couple of lines in here. And this is the one that I think is most important because it eliminates the expectation that what we're looking for is a trove. What we are looking for is a trove. And I'll explain that comment in just a minute. On page 15, second paragraph, he says, the framework of the law of lost and found property law is the common law jurisdictions in the United States. I'm sorry, let me read that over again. The framework of the law of lost and found property law is the common law jurisdictions in the United States is based on distinction among lost, mislaid, and abandoned property. Abandoned property is the property that the owner throws away or voluntarily forsakes its possession, and the first person to find it gets absolute title. Lost property is that the owner involuntarily parted with through neglect, carelessness, or inadvertence, and of which whereabouts the owner has no knowledge, and the finder gets title against everyone except the true owner. So, for example, if I lost my wallet and I was still living, somebody found that wallet, I still have the rights to claim, and if I did it accidentally, if I didn't put it out there purposely, I still have the rights to claim that wallet, but nobody else does. Mislaid property is that which is intentionally put in a certain place and later forgotten. So I think of these three definitions. I'd like to go back to the abandoned property. Abandoned property is property that the owner throws away or voluntarily forsakes its possession, and the first person to find it gets absolute title. So to me, that solidifies the idea that once you get the treasure, if the treasure is in your possession, you have absolute title. So how does this idea of trove come into play? So a little bit further down on, again, page 15. So those are the top three things, right? Lost, abandoned, lost, or mislaid property. Then within the context of abandoned, lost, or mislaid property, there is this additional definition. In addition to the lost, mislaid, abandoned distinction, United States courts distinguish two further types of lost property. Okay, so this is part of that lost property definition. Embedded property and treasure trove. Embedded property is property that has been buried in the land unless it is a treasure trove. So if I were to bury a pot, that would be embedded property. But a treasure trove very specifically has to be gold, silver, coins of gold and silver, and other metal artifacts. The best example he gives in here is a meteorite, right? A meteorite falls under the category of embedded property. Treasure trove is refined gold and silver, either as bullion or made into coin plus paper money, since the paper representatives of gold and silver are deemed to be treasure trove as well. And again, he gives citations in case law for all of this. Treasure trove is buried or otherwise hidden or concealed. It need not be fixed to the land, but can be hidden and movable. Courts have been willing to consider a treasure trove fines of money in the wing. Let me read that again. Courts have been willing to consider as treasure trove fines of money in the wing of an airplane, safes, and mattresses. Treasure trove, and here's the big distinction that I want to focus on today. Treasure trove has the thought of antiquity. A find of money must have been concealed so long that it is unlikely that the true owner will reappear before a court will consider it a treasure trove. This language originated in a 1956 Oregon case where the money had been concealed for less than a year. The courts have not enunciated a bright line rule as to how many years will allow a find to be considered treasure trove. The consensus appears to be several decades, perhaps 3 or more. A 2001 case decided that 11 years was too little time for a find to be considered a treasure trove. A 1995 case considered that 35 years might be sufficient. A 1991 case stated that 59 years might be sufficient. Thus, a corn hoard is treated as a treasure trove if it is old enough. Otherwise, it is treated as lost, abandoned, or mislaid. So,
You meant to say coin hoard.
What did I say?
Corn hoard.
Corn hoard.
Hoarding corn again.
Yeah, I was playing cornhole.
Corner on the corn.
Cornhole. So let's go back to that definition of lost. Lost property is property that the owner involuntarily parted with. No, that's not lost. I'm sorry. Abandoned. Abandoned property is property that the owner throws away or voluntarily forsakes its possession, and the first person to find it gets absolute title. So, which Fenn substantiates, of course, in his poem where he says, if you are brave and in the wood, I give you title to the gold. The implication there being that if you've actually gone out, looked for it, and found it, you get title to it. Which is all he can do, by the way, because if you now have it and you have title to it, you have to transfer that title to someone else. Let's say you're going to take it to Sotheby's and auction it off. You transfer title to Sotheby's temporarily, and they transfer title to the effective buyer. So it was very wise of him to say, if you are brave and in the wood, meaning if you're the one out there looking for it, I give you title to the gold. And that's because after that, after it's in your possession, you have the title and you can decide what to do with it. So the question I had to ask myself as I was going through this disassembly of the poem phase in my treasure hunt career was why Trove? And the answer that I've come up with is that Fenn used the word Trove. Well, he could have used it as part of the poetic license, right? He needed a single syllable word, my Trove, in there, or at least the two syllables instead of property of which I have abandoned, right? That's not going to fit very well in the poem. So that's one possibility, just poetic creativity. But there could be another reason. And the second reason is if he had been talking to attorneys about all of this, those attorneys, if he had spent $8,000, those attorneys might have said to him, well, Forrest, it's really not a trove until after 35 years, according to these two citations, 1995 and 1991, that the court is willing to accept 35 and 59 years as long enough for it to be called a trove and not just abandoned. So Fenn says, I'm not speaking for Fenn here, but it strikes me that Fenn then probably said to himself, well, I don't expect it to be found in 35 or 59 years. I'd like it to be out there for 100 years. And by that time, it's a trove. So my bottom line hypothesis in all of this is that the use of the word trove once in the poem and no other time except once at Moby Dickens because he read the poem, and most recently in the Playboy interview, is an indication to me that Fenn had no expectation that this treasure was going to be found in his lifetime unless he lived to be 115. Which tells us again how well this treasure is hidden. What do you think?
Yep.
All right. So what do you think about all that? I'm going to open the phone lines. You call in and tell me what you think about that hypothesis. Trove versus abandoned. If we find it now, it's abandoned property. They have to look for the owner. You have to, the authorities. You have to actually turn it in so the authorities can look for the owner. The advantage you have is that the owner has said in his poem, you can refer to the title, to the poem. The poem is in the olive jar because his biography is in the olive jar as well as a lock of his hair. So ownership can be established, title can be established, the title of the person abandoning the property can be established. I mean, it's obvious just for what's in that olive jar, even if you didn't have anything else. If you didn't have the book, if you just accidentally found the treasure, you'd still have that olive jar to say who that treasure belonged to, and that person is the only one that can take away title from you to that treasure. No one else can. His family can't. His dog can't.
His lawyers.
His attorneys can't. Nobody else can take that if he's not around. If he's around, he can say, you know what? I really did not abandon that. I just kind of left it there. He would have a hard time doing that just because of the way everything is written. And if any of the Golden Moor chapter is included in the autobiography of inside the olive jar, he could not prove that it wasn't abandoned property. Therefore, now that you have it in your hands, you've got title. So the problem is going to be in each jurisdiction the amount of time that you have to spend looking for it. I'm going to say something that's going to sound terrible. I don't mean it to sound terrible. I'm just making an observation. If forest it has passed, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get that treasure and keep it in your hands than if he was alive, because there's got to be time when the authorities, whoever they are, have to determine whether or not the owner is alive and whether or not it was truly abandoned, etc., etc. Now, if they look in the olive jar, if you open the olive jar, that story is all in there. Forrest has indicated that if he is alive, he's transferred title. That's kind of the plan. So I don't expect that if he is alive and the treasure is found, anything different will occur. But it's a lot easier if he isn't alive. Don't take me wrong. I hope.
AJ Rainville has a question there.
What's his question?
It's lit up in orange at the bottom there.
In your non-expert opinion, abandoned property is the best current definition of the treasure. Yes, AJ. Hey, you've reached Toby and Shelley. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And what's your observation on all this?
Well, I called you in your last show, and I was talking about the keyword. My name's Scott. I'm from Oklahoma.
Yeah, Scott. Does that fit in? Does that fit in with what we're talking about today?
No, I'm not going to talk about that.
What, Scott?
What I want to talk.
Scott.
You want me to talk about it some more?
No. Well, what I want you to, if you're not going to talk about this concept of trove versus abandoned versus lost, et cetera, because I want other people to call in and talk about that, I would prefer that you hold on till tonight when we have kind of open phone lines and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about then. Is that fair?
That's correct. I'm not going to talk about that from the last call. I'll call you tonight if I want to talk about that.
Perfect. Okay.
I do want to talk about trove though.
Okay.
And because you mentioned what your show was going to be or I saw it on YouTube, it was going to be about trove, and I thought, well, that's unusual. Why is he going to talk about trove? And so I began to do some research, and your research pretty well paralleled mine. And I realized that when you started talking about that article, I realized I'd found that article quite some time ago and hadn't read it by the attorney out of New York. And so I was kind of concerned whether you were going to do a good analysis of this, and I think you've done a very good analysis.
Well, thank you. That's
but
very
I wanted
kind.
to add something to it.
Okay.
Yep. I see this whole poem as a contract. And he uses the term, and leave my, that's what caught my attention, and leave my trove for all to seek. He's claiming ownership to it. And he does that in the first paragraph, or first stanza, and he does it in that paragraph. And as a contract, just as you have analyzed, he says, if you are brave and in the wood, okay. When he says that, he's stating conditions under which you can claim it, just as you stated. That's very, very good analysis. And in the contract you have with him, by going out and finding it properly, that's being brave and in the wood, in that context, you have to, it's kind of hard to figure, you have fulfilled the contract. In other words, if a road crew comes along and is building a road or trail or something, and they build it across that, or somebody's building a home and they find it when they're doing the foundation, he's still claiming title to it because you were not brave and in the wood and you were not following the instructions in the contract. And what's more interesting about that, to me, it's something that's bothered me from day one on this. And that is what he says in the very last line. He says, I give you title to the gold. And the reason that's interesting to me is before I started doing property law, I was involved in tax law. And the way I read that, I said, I give you title to the gold. Well, this is a gift, and we're fulfilling the conditions of the gift or the contract. So what are the tax ramifications of that? Well, the tax ramifications are really simple. It's a gift, and you owe no tax on it. Forrest Fenn owes the tax on it.
I think so. So would a court, if you were to cite that part of the poem in your claim of ownership, but not having to pay taxes, would the court say the gift is not the treasure, but it's a gift of the title to the treasure? Isn't there an in-between kind of thing that's happening where he's giving you a title, like sending you a piece of paper that says you now own the gold? The gold then is not the gift; it's the title that's the gift. Does that make sense?
Yes, and he also excludes by saying, "I give you title to the gold." I mean, if you want to follow this line of reasoning, anyway, when he says, "I give you title to the gold," he's not giving you title to anything else other than the gold.
You don't
the
think he's
antiquities, the chest, and everything else remain his.
Interesting. So in your mind, let's say Forrest Fenn is still alive, and let's say you go boots on the ground and you find this treasure, right? With the experience that you have in both property and tax law, what would you do to ensure? And let's make it as neutral as possible, just for the sake of ease. So let's say that you find the treasure and it's on BLM land, which is the least restrictive of all these. What would you do in order to protect your ownership of that said treasure? And let's assume Fenn is still alive.
Are you saying would I file a claim in a county courthouse?
No. I mean, what I'm asking, I'm not saying anything. I'm just establishing a hypothetical. You, with knowledge of both tax and property law, find Forrest Fenn's treasure on BLM land. What would you do to ensure that you could keep that Forrest Fenn treasure?
Well, I would notify Fenn that I had found his gift and that I'd fulfilled the terms of the gift contract.
Mm-hmm. And would you expect that he would that he would agree to pay the taxes on that quote gift unquote?
Well, here's the situation. He has said many times over, and I think he realized that he'd made a mistake using the term "I give you title to the gold," because I don't really think that's what he intended. I think he threw that in at the end of the poem, not really realizing there were tax ramifications to what he's saying. And I think that my opinion of it is that you get the whole thing. That was his intent, because he used this term too. I think he's trying to clarify what he originally meant. He has said many times over, "You will earn it."
Yeah.
Earn.
Right.
As in earned income, earned anything.
So let me ask the question, same question, different way, and that is, you found Forrest Fenn's treasure on BLM land. Forrest Fenn is still alive. You would call him and thank him for his gift, and then would you pay the taxes? Would you offer to pay the taxes on the gift?
I don't think I'll have to offer. I think the IRS will be in there claiming.
Right. They're going to claim something from somebody, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so new hypothetical. Same situation. It's on BLM land. You find it, and Forrest Fenn is passed. Who pays the taxes?
I will.
Okay, I think we agree.
Because he's deceased.
Yeah.
And he has no expectation of personally reclaiming it. And
right.
He has said that he's not going to pass the information on to anybody. So he has no expectation of reclaiming it at that time. But he does have an expectation of reclaiming it if it reaches $10 million in value.
Yeah, he has said that. Now, it was said in jest, I think. But if that were true, he could cite that. But technically,
yes, he could.
As abandoned property, doesn't he always have, regardless of its value, if he's still alive, doesn't he always have the right to reclaim the abandoned property?
It depends on whether you see this poem as a contract.
All right.
And a gift.
Okay.
It depends on how the court would see that.
Yeah, that's the interesting conversation that I wanted to have. let's see. Abandoned property is property that the owner throws away or voluntarily forsakes its possession, and the first person to find it gets absolute title. So if it is abandoned, if it's described as abandoned in Fenn, it sounds like if Fenn is still living, he has no right. He has no right to claim the title back. You're the first person to find
Well,
it
there's
gets
a
it.
modification.
What's that?
There's a modification of that in the fact that it would be considered treasure because he's called a treasure.
Oh, no. I agree. I'm just talking about property. Right. I'm just talking about abandoned property.
Are you driving it? What? Are you driving it? I don't really know what you're driving at, I guess. I'm missing something. I keep thinking in terms of the law, and I'm trying to go sequentially in that.
Okay. So here's what I'm trying to say. That Fenn, regardless of how a trove is defined, regardless of whether it's a gift, Fenn has abandoned the property. Would you agree? Property.
I thought about that quite a bit.
The property
And
that has the owner throws away or voluntarily forsakes its possession. It is abandoned property.
well, if you voluntarily forsake possession, then you have no expectation of recovering it. But he has stated he does have that expectation when the value reaches $10 million.
Yeah, I think the court would throw that case out because it says, and the first person to find it gets, and I'm going to underline this word, absolute title.
I don't know if that's case law you're reading or if that's actually written law.
Actually, I'm reading it from Kleberg's paper. I'm going to assume. Let me see if there's a citation. Citation. There is a citation.
Yeah, it's a citation to a
It's enumeration.
federal rule, federal law.
Yeah, it's enumerating the elements of lost property. Is the title of the citation. He previously cited before. Terry versus it's case law. Terry versus Locke, 36.
If it's case law, then you can modify an awful lot. The next court's going to decide on its own what it believes, whether it's 59, 35, or 2 years for them. They're going to decide how they want this to be resolved.
Yeah.
And they are going to find anything they can find to find that resolution that they have made for themselves.
Right.
That's why it's case law, it's not written law, and case law can always be modified.
All right, sir. Well, thank you for calling in and telling us what you think about this. I think there's some places where we agree, and I think there's some places where we agree that it's going to be unsettled until case law is established.
I think it may be unsettled absolutely until there's a lawsuit.
Unless Fenn has passed away, and then I think it's pretty well established who owns the abandoned property.
I would totally agree with that.
Okay. All right, sir. Well, again, I don't mean to make it sound like I want Fenn to pass away soon, but it is going to be easier. All right, sir. Thanks for calling in. You have a good day.
Agree.
And let's talk tonight about that other idea you had. I don't know if you got that last. Okay. Home.
So if it's a gift, you should be able to do whatever you want with it.
Well, yeah, but the question is, do you want to call Fenn and say, I've got your treasure, you want to pay taxes on it? So I think that...
He already paid taxes as he purchased everything that he put together. He paid taxes on it. He already paid for the taxes when he put it together.
So
why does he have to do it again?
If you one day give, if your son asks you for the down payment on the house and you give it to him, you have to pay taxes on that gift, whether you paid taxes prior to that or not. Hey, you've reached Toby and Shelley. Where are you calling from? What's your name and what's your observation?
This is Candy from Nevada.
Hi, Candy.
Hi. Are you on? Are you there?
Yes.
Not quite sure.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Anyway, why don't you make another remark about your last caller? You know, he knows what he's talking about. So Sounds good, really good. But, I want to just make a statement about common sense.
Uh-huh.
Common sense will lead you a long way, not just legalities. And also, from what I've learned from my past experience, it's been different things, but intent is very important. What your intent to do means a lot. If your intention is to leave it as a gift, then that's a gift to whomever is the first finder of the treasure. But another thing I think we need to talk about as a group is, what are we going to do going forward? I think we need to forget about what kind of property and what kind of land it's on. Because we need to go past that and find this thing first before we worry about exactly where it's at. Once you find it and he's already given it to you and the legalities are already there, he's already said the binder has the right to the title. Well, we need to focus and concentrate more on where this thing is now, go forward. How are we, forget about which kind of property it's on and go forward with the poem and the map. I think the legalities by now have been explained. He's already told us and given us permission and title. We just have to find it and go from there. I don't know. That's my opinion.
And that's, that's why we have this telephone line, so that you can call in and express your opinion.
Yeah, that's all I'm doing. I think it,
That's what it's about. That's why
and I think it'd also be good if we could all, be a little more upfront and honest about things. I mean, it's going to be a difficult thing. We're talking about huge amounts of land. Talk about a needle in a haystack. Now, this thing is going to be hard for anybody to find.
Yeah.
And I think in some way we can help each other figure out different things and share our ideas with other people without being so afraid. I don't know. I think the only way we're going to solve it is if we can all kind of work together on this thing, share our ideas and thoughts, and maybe figure something out. Everybody's so afraid to share information about what state they're looking at and where they're going at and everything, It's going to be difficult. You're talking about 4 states. I mean, come on. This is a 10 by 10 inch box. It's not going to be easy for anybody, right? I don't know. Do you agree with that?
So I agree that it is not going to be easy. I think we've already said that in several different ways. I think your commentary, I'm going to give you a little bit of pushback on your commentary that we're not helping each other. I think the problem is not ours. I think if you've spent any length of time, if you go back to the original forums like Chase Chat and Dale Neitzel's site, to some extent, to a lesser extent, Mysterious Writings, and some of the newer ones like the Hint of Riches and Harry's, there was a point at which people were sharing information in the best way. But I'm going to go back to that distinction I made a couple of weeks ago between the David Blaine and other similar treasure hunts and the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt. The thing about the David Blaine treasure hunt, and the reason that it was found so easily and that it was found so quickly, was that not only were people sharing information, but they were able to resolve the clues one at a time and then share that. I don't know how many clues, maybe because Sassy's in the room. I think I've asked her this before. How many, how many clues there were in that poem, but each clue could be resolved one at a time. So you knew you were making progress. And that way, that's how people were helping each other. In the case of Fenn's poem, because we don't know, we still all have different opinions on where warm waters halt, right? Everybody has an opinion. So there's some consensus in some areas, but everybody who you ask where warm waters halt will give you their opinion on that matter. There is no way to agree on it. And Fenn, and I'll cite this again, Fenn has said that you're not going to know that you have the correct warm waters halt, and I assume the other 8 clues that go along with that, until you find the treasure. That implies to me that there is no way to cooperate. There's no way there's no way for everybody to cooperate because you can't prove you have the correct warm waters halt. In Blaine's poem, if the equivalent of the first clue in Blaine's poem, you could not only prove it, but everybody could look at it, everybody could see it, and agree that was indeed the first clue. So now they could go to the second one. We don't have that in this particular puzzle. We don't know how to make progress, and I think that's what makes it so difficult for everybody to cooperate.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is we don't know. We don't know. And if we would help each other a little more, I agree with what you said about we've shared to an extent. But there's a lot of things we haven't shared, I think. But yeah, you're right about that. But we need to share more. Everybody's so afraid of saying what state they're in, where they're looking at. They're afraid someone else will get there first. But I agree with everything you said. I'm just saying, it doesn't hurt to help a little more and be a little more giving.
Yeah.
I mean, did you see that video by that laddie Addy, I think was his name? I mean, he paid $3,500 for some thing he got on eBay, FOIA, whatever it was.
Yeah.
$3,500 this guy paid for that.
Yeah.
And what did he get? He hardly got anything.
Yeah, he made a video saying how disappointed he was.
I feel for some of these people. They spent all that money, and what did he get? I mean, and he's nice enough to share it and put it online and share it with everybody. Whatever it is he got doesn't seem like much, but he's sharing it with everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, he paid $3,500 for this information he got.
And didn't get anything.
Like much.
Yeah, it didn't sound like he got anything. He certainly didn't get. He certainly didn't get someplace. He didn't get a solution that would get him to the treasure. It sounds like.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's all. I'm just saying. I feel for these people that do that.
All right, Candy. Thank you for calling in. By the way, I'm not sure which email address you were trying to send it, but I responded with a text message saying our email address is gypsieskiss@gmail.com.
Yeah, I finally figured that out.
Okay. All right. Okie doke. All right.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure.
Hi, Shelley. Hi, Shelley. Don't mean to ignore you. Let Shelley talk more. I'd like to know what she thinks about this.
Okay. I will.
Okay. Bye.
It's not like I let Shelley talk. Shelley can talk whatever she wants. J.A. Street, there are two of us in the room, so I'm going to keep continuing to use the word we. So what are your thoughts on all this?
Not much.
What?
It doesn't get us closer to the treasure.
It does get us closer to the treasure. I'll
How?
explain why. I can't do this on. I'm not sharing. I'm not going to share all of this with.
You just said we share everything we know, and that's how we find the treasure.
No, how we find the treasure is by understanding Forrest Fenn.
Okay.
This gives me a little bit more insight into Forrest Fenn, just a little bit.
Okay.
So I do want to share some of the information so I told you I was disassembling the poem. So maybe you guys already know this. 166 words, 630 characters with spaces, 602 characters. 630 characters excluding spaces, and 602 characters excluding punctuation. Hey, you've reached Toby and Shelley. Thanks for calling. What's your name, where you're calling from, and what's your observation?
Hi, I'm Angela from PA. I think it seems like to me you guys are thinking about this as a lost object or an abandoned object. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's a game, and it was constructed purposely, and at the end there's a prize. And so if you're looking at it as far as taxes, you would be paying taxes on a prize, just something that you won.
So those taxes on a prize, though, are what are referred to as unearned income, and they can go as high as 40% at the last time I checked, because gambling winnings are unearned income. Lottery winnings are unearned income. So
well, we won a prize in the lottery in our state, and that was 25%.
Yeah. Well, it varies from state to state because you have to pay federal taxes, but then you have to pay varied state taxes. So depending on the state you're in, the total amount of taxes you're going to pay is different from everyone. But ours would be 40% total, and they actually hold it if you do the winnings through the state. But
Okay.
since the taxes are higher on prize, would it make more sense to make the argument of abandoned property rather than a game and a prize?
Well, I'm not sure how anybody would look at it, though. Exactly, I don't know. To me, it seemed like it was constructed, and it's built that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no. I agree with you. So if, let's say, you came out to the West, you went to BLM land in one of the 4 states, you found the treasure, you took it back to Pennsylvania, you filed your taxes, you went to file taxes or report the winnings, and you would be taxed based on that, right?
Right.
Suppose I were to tell you that in the case of the abandoned property law, the taxes would be half that amount that if you were to claim that it was a game and a prize.
But how would that be determined? Who would determine that?
You'd have to. So you'd have to go to the state and say one way or the other, right? Let's say you went to the state of Pennsylvania and the United States government, and you said, "I found this abandoned property," and they would tax you based on the perception of value, right? Because you want to pay taxes one way or the other, whether it's abandoned property or it's if it's abandoned property or if it says you state a game and a prize, you're still going to be taxed on it.
Okay.
Right?
And who determines the value of it? Because the value of it would have to be determined in order to place a tax value.
Well, eventually what in the case of the IRS and probably state of Pennsylvania, is they're going to ask you to hire somebody to appraise it and to determine the value. Now, the advantage that that was one of the things that we considered when we decided to auction it off. If I turn it over to Sotheby's, the determined value, and so you've got to do 2 things. So I'm going to get an attorney that will talk to the IRS so that they can tell the IRS what we're going to do, which is we're going to auction it off and hold the IRS off until the auction, because the auction will determine the value. IRS would accept that to determine the value, and then I would pay taxes on whatever the check IRS presented us, right?
So you're saying that I wouldn't be able to keep it? I would have to sell it?
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you're going to have to pay taxes on it, whether you keep it or not, right? If you keep it, you still it still has to be appraised so that you can pay taxes to both the state and federal governments when you keep it.
Okay, I see. All right, I was just, in my mind, it was like a prize. Say if I went on, The Price is Right and I want a car.
Yeah, and I'm not
paying tax on the value of the car, right?
Right, but what I'm suggesting to you, and I don't know your state, and again, I'm not an attorney, nor do I play one on TV. What I would do is I would ask my attorney which tax situation is better for me. If I claim this as a prize, or if I claim it as found property that was abandoned. That's the question you want to ask.
I have another question on something that you were talking about earlier.
Okay.
You said that abandoned property belongs to the first person to find it.
Yes.
What if you find it, but you're not able to recover it immediately? Is there a difference?
If you find it and don't recover it, then it belongs to the first person to find it, gets absolute title. It says the first person
Find it,
to find
but not recover it.
Well, I think the assumption that the court's going to make is that if you found it, you're going to want to recover it. I think you create a problem for yourself if you find it and don't recover it.
Because then you're abandoning it.
Right, you're effectively
Abandoning it.
When she speaks, it's like the voice of an angel, right? So if you find it and don't, as Shelley said, that's very, very insightful. So as Shelley said, if you find it and you don't recover it, you are effectively abandoning it a second time.
Abandoning it?
Yeah.
Oh. I
So
guess
that means
makes sense.
so that means the next person to come upon that treasure and they walk away with the treasure has absolute title.
Okay.
So you're giving
All
up.
right, I'll go
you're
with
giving
that.
you're giving up title if you abandon it a second time. How's that?
Okay.
But
All right. I guess a lot of people think they found it, but then they haven't really found it.
yeah, it's
But maybe they've been there and taken pictures, and they did find it, and they don't even know.
well. If they have pictures of the treasure, then I'd say they found it. If they don't have pictures of the treasure, then I'd say they haven't found it.
All right. Thanks.
My pleasure. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now. And once again, I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on
Evan
YouTube.
Fenn said you can give $11 million in gifts in your lifetime.
In your
no
lifetime with no
taxes.
taxes.
That's what he said.
Oh, that sounds like a big number to me. That must have been
Well,
part
here's
of.
what I'm
Was that the
wondering. So you
recent?
give your girlfriend a $35,000 ring. Why doesn't she owe taxes on it? Or why don't, because it's a gift, right?
Well, it actually wasn't a gift. It was a prospective engagement.
It's a gift. She didn't give it back.
I don't think I'm going to get into this.
So you give anybody a piece of jewelry and you say, here's a gift. And they don't have to pay taxes on it. It's a gift.
So several years ago, I was engaged, and I bought a really expensive ring, and I walked away. I didn't walk away from the engagement. We decided to break the engagement. Let's see, Joel
She
Lewicki,
decided to keep the ring.
and she decided to keep the ring.
Because that was a gift.
Joel Lewicki says, a finder who finds it and walks away from it is in a different standing in my mind than Forrest when he walked away. I'm not sure, Mr. Attorney, I'm not going to disagree with an attorney, but I think if you find it and walk away from it, you've abandoned it. And I could, I'm only, that's the case I'd make. By the way.
Oh, yeah. We had a $5 donation
From who was that?
It was blue.
Bill Cross.
Green. Bill Cross from Texas.
He says, does the name F. Harlan Flint mean anything to Toby or Shelley as Fenn's attorney or his acquaintance?
I've never heard of him.
I've never...
Anybody in the room?
Yeah, Bill, I've never heard the name before.
Joel says, I don't think he abandoned it.
Well, yeah, that's... Okay, then what do you think he did with it, Joel? Joel, call in, damn it.
Jen's Ezer? The show is named A Gypsy's Kiss because a gypsy kissed Toby. And he never forgot it.
When I was a little boy.
So he names everything A Gypsy's Kiss
When I was
since then.
When I was a little Catholic boy,
16.
I was kissed
He
by
was 16.
I think I was 15.
Wow.
I think I just turned 15.
Driving a motorcycle across country when you're 15
Yeah.
and nobody cares or stops you or does
No,
anything
because I
about
broke
it?
out. Nobody knew about it. The only one that knew about it was my Uncle Carlos, from whom I borrowed the motorcycle.
Well, you had to be able to drive
Yeah.
legally.
I had a driver's license.
Not if you're not 16.
No, not in New Mexico. My mother found a judge that got me a license because I didn't have a father and I needed to help with the family. I had my license at 15.
Oh. Well, anyway, that's why we named it A Gypsy's Kiss.
Yeah. It was also the name of my sailboats out on the East Coast. So, yep, that's
Like I
what's
said, he
there's
names,
a
he
really
names
long
everything
story.
that.
Long story that goes along with it, and we're not going to bore everybody to death because almost everybody in the room's heard it. Joel, come on, we got 8 minutes, Joel. Call in and tell us why you didn't abandon it.
Oh,
I don't think
somebody
that's
beat him
Joel.
to it.
Hey, you've reached Toby and Shelley. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And what's your observation?
This is Candy.
Oh, Candy,
From
you're calling.
Nevada.
Hi.
He left it as a gift to the finder. That's just my opinion. You asked
you
what
know-
we thought.
Yeah, the gentleman that called a few minutes ago kind of made that as well. Yeah.
Well, Joe Lewicki, I agree with him. He didn't abandon it. He left it as a gift to the finder.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
Well,
that's all.
I want to hear from Joel. I want to hear what he says. He's an attorney. Why didn't he abandon it?
He just says he didn't abandon it.
I know.
He doesn't think he abandoned
If he didn't abandon it, then what did he do with
it.
it?
He left it as a gift
Okay.
to whoever finds it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no.
What do I know?
No, that's why we like you guys calling in and expressing your opinion on these matters, because there's a dozen different ones. And here's kind of the problem that I was telling you about. The reason it's very difficult to agree on anything in this poem is because we all have these various opinions on the meaning of each of these things. So that's part of the problem of us working together. I think everybody would like to work together. It is.
There's a difference between an opinion and knowledge.
Agreed. Knowledge is based on fact.
Right.
So it's
That's all I gotta say.
yeah. It's in your opinion, he left it as a gift rather than as a abandoned property.
And I think that's what Joel is trying to say. And he's a lawyer. But it sounds to me like that's what he's trying to say.
Well, let's not put words in his mouth. Let's have Joel call and tell us what he's trying to say.
Yeah. That's right. Great.
Okay?
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
The Gypsy was an old woman, and the ring, she probably sold it because she didn't like Toby anymore.
No, it was a unique and beautiful ring. I'd be surprised if she sold it.
It's a reminder of you. Then
it had a 8-carat sapphire centered, and then on each side of the 8-carat, it had two 2-carat trillion diamonds. It was a beautiful ring. I don't think it. How did we get on that subject?
Gifts.
Oh.
If you give gifts, you owe taxes on it. And I'm like, I don't see people paying taxes on stuff like that.
No.
They buy the ring, you paid the taxes on the ring when you bought it from the jeweler, but after you gave it to her, she didn't pay taxes on it. You didn't pay additional taxes on it.
Nor did either of us report.
Yeah.
Right, because I didn't report the 35.
She didn't report
that
his
year,
income.
Right. Well, you can't. I don't think you can do this with Fenn Treasure.
He wanted me to have it.
Now you're making
he put
me,
it right there where I could get to it. And
now you're
gave
making me
instructions
regret
on
that I
finding
didn't
it.
report the $35,000
See? Loss.
yeah. Because then they would have asked, to whom did you lose it? She would have had to pay taxes.
See, there you go.
No, I was a good soul back then. I was still in love with life.
Well, I think we're about done here.
We are done. Okay. Let me turn the phone off right now. And so what's happening the rest of the week?
Well, tonight at 7 o'clock p.m., we have a Friday Fandango, and we'll be reading emails, all the emails that we get. We're reading texts and listening to voicemails and more live calls. Now, somebody mentioned in the room that I brought up something and then you refused to tell, and it's like, if you're not looking for the treasure, why are you not sharing your information? Or is it because we're talking about it next week? This thing that Trove has to do with getting closer to the treasure?
It's not just Trove. It's the things that I'm playing with in the poem.
So we're going to get there. It's just not all finished being put together
No,
yet.
no. The minute I have something to tell you guys, I will tell you. I'm just off on I don't have anything of value. The things that I said today, you probably already know. I'm just discovering this stuff for the first time. So I don't have anything to share with you, but the moment I do have something to share with you, I will.
Yeah.
Something of
There's
substance.
some fun things coming up
Wait.
for next week.
Joel Lewicki says, just tried to call. I was out of the office and came back to hear you say I should. Ugh. Don't let work get in the way of our
Well, make sure you come back
relationship.
tonight.
Yeah, come back
Calls
tonight.
then.
Let's talk about it again.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you heard it, Joel, but Candy thinks that it falls under the gift category and therefore will be taxed differently. And she said, and I don't know whether or not you had said this, I didn't see it. She said that you believed that it was a gift and not abandoned property. And I don't remember. So just do me a favor, write in the comments box. Do you believe that Fenn's treasure will be treated as a gift, a prize, or abandoned property? Because I think those are the choices: gift, prize, or abandoned property.
Yeah, unless you
None
come
of-
up with a different
None of which is a Trove.
category.
I am not wearing a rooster. What I will be wearing, Mitzi, is I won't be wearing a tie tomorrow for the Fenn Marathon.
That's right.
So did you tell folks about that?
I haven't got there yet.
Okay.
Somebody just took over and finished everything I was saying.
Okay, go.
Because I guess he didn't want to talk about expensive rings anymore. So tonight, 7 o'clock p.m., we'll be here for Friday Fandango until 9 o'clock. And tomorrow, since my husband's working overtime, Toby and I decided to work too. And we will be on the Force Fenn Marathon chat on Cat Lasers and K-Pro's channel. And we will be on in the second hour, which Mountain Time is from 2 to 3. So I hope that you will join us then and get those numbers up nice and high. So, because, that's important to us. That's all I have. I live for that.
Get those
My
numbers.
my mom needs us to get up to 250 tomorrow. So I can impress my mom. So, show up for that.
So Bill Cross says, AGK, any way to have Wonder Hussy on again? We could invite her. The last time I spoke with her, we agreed that she comes down to New Mexico. One of her things is hot springs, and she comes down to New Mexico. She lives in the Las Vegas area, and doesn't have an owner, so he could give title. Yeah, see, that's where I think that's the distinction there, Joel. We can talk about this more tonight. And she and I talked, and we agreed that the next time she's in the area, she's going to come on live with us. But I don't know. I don't know.
But she won't be naked, so don't get your hopes up.
She will have clothes on. But the other thing too is she hasn't spent much time with the Fenn Treasure since those 2 shows that she did a couple of years ago. So, but I've always advised her that if she ever finds herself in Santa Fe, to call Fenn and let him know that she's going to be in town so she can say hi to him, because I know he'd appreciate that.
Yes, I'll try to call in tonight. Good, Joel. We hope to see you there.
Yes.
We hope to see all of you there as well. We're going to have our music. And again, if we did not get your song, please send us another email. Let us know what song you had chosen, and we'll do our best to get it on the board. We are just about full on the board. We'll erase things if we have to, some of the green ones that we don't use.
Yeah.
So, if you have a song that you wanted played and we don't have it yet because we forgot, which happens because Toby's old, make sure you email us and let us know what
Toby's
song you wanted, and we'll take care of it.
Do me a favor.
What?
So do something with your hands so I have a good thumbnail. Over there, right there.
Yay.
That's good, right there. Good. Okay.
Okay. Oh yeah, what the Fenn?
What the Fenn? We don't.
So-
We're a family program. We want to keep our monetization,
And,
so we don't use.
and that's
custom-
just because it's Fenn's definition of trove
Right.
that we're looking for.
It is not meant to be offensive.
Wow. Bad pun.
Okay.
All right, that's enough for now. Thank you so much for being here, for all your great questions, comments, and super chat. Thank you. And we will see you again tonight for a Gypsy's Kiss. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Younis. We'll see you tonight, and then again tomorrow afternoon. Thanks for joining us.